Hi everyone, Donovan here. In this video, I want to create a simple scoring system and have it display up in our UI. So firstly, we're going to create a layer that will act as our user interface. So if you haven't watched the video on layers, please go back and watch that. So I'm going to open the layers editor, create a new layer, and I'm going to call that UI. And the reason I want to create a different layer for the UI is because as my character moves, I don't want to scroll past everything in my UI, right? I want the UI to stay with the camera. So I have to put it in a separate layer. So I'll add a new object, and I actually want to create a text object here. I'm going to call it score text. And to start, I'm just going to have it say score 0. And you can play around with that, with the fonts and stuff like that, make it all fancy, but I'm just going to leave it as black. And then I'm going to drag that onto my screen. Okay, now if you click on it and then look in the properties panel, currently it's on the base layer. I just want to change that to my UI layer that I've just created. So just test that out, press play, and make sure that as you move through your level, it stays on screen. Now I'm going to close that back up, and I actually want to do the coding for it. If you haven't watched the last video on variables, we created a score global variable. So quickly go back and watch that. But just to show quickly, you can see, oops, not in properties. Global variables, I have one there called score, and it's starting at 0. Okay, so what I want to do now is every time I collect a coin, I want to add something to my score. So you can see there, I already have that condition, coin is in collision with main character, and then the action is delete the coin. But after I delete the coin, I want to change the score. And to do that, if you look into your the variables section, right, you have a sub menu there called global variables. So I'll open that up. And then there's one that's called the value of a global variable. And automatically it's come up with score because that's the only global variable we've created. And I want to add to it. So I want to add, say, 10. Every time I collect a coin, I want to add 10 to my score. Right? Hit OK. So currently it's going to be collecting the coins and adding to the score. But if you see me collect the coin, it's not updating that text yet, right? That's because it's a separate thing to the actual score variable. The score variable is just something that's behind the scenes, and this is essentially just a text box. So we have to manually code the text box to update every time. I'm just going to do it inside my always, but you can put it instead underneath your where you're actually changing the score and then manually do it there. But I'm just going to do it always. Sorry, manually putting it when you actually change the score, that's actually more efficient in terms of processing power and computer memory. But this way is easier in the game because later on, say I kill an enemy and I want to update my score by 20 there, instead of having to manually code the updating of the score, it'll just automatically do it. So I'm going to click into it to add an action, and I want to click on my text object here, and I have an option to modify text. Now, if you can't find any of these, you can just type it in the top search bar, and you can see some options come up. And actually, I've clicked on the wrong one there. Change text opacity. There you go, modify the text down here. And I want to modify score text, and I want to set it equal to. Okay. Now, for this, we actually have to type in some manual code, but essentially it's that global variable string, and then the name of our global variable, which was score, and then close it like that. And then hit OK. So global variable string, and then every word, the first letter is capitalized, and then in a function, and then score. Hit OK. Now if you press play and collect the coin, you can see it updates to 10. Right? So currently it's just showing that number. If I wanted to say score and then the number, I can come back to this and I can do, so this bit's a little bit more advanced, so don't worry about that. Just follow it. Right, so you can see it says score, and then I'm adding 10. Okay. That's all for this video, but if you want to understand this a little bit better, this word that's inside the quotation marks, that's what we call a string. In programming, and a string is just a type of data. Essentially it's just letters, right? You can have numbers in it, but the computer won't recognize the numbers. So if I had a string that said 22 like that, and then try to add it to something, it won't recognize it, because it's just a bunch of characters. Essentially that's what the computer sees. So what we're saying here is show this bunch of characters, and then to the end of it, that's what the plus does to a string, to the end of it, show our score value, right? And what this thing is doing is converting the score, which is currently a number, also into a string, so that we can just display the character. Okay, that's a little bit more advanced. You don't actually have to know that, but if you're interested. That's all for this video.